this week we are revisiting decimal place value. Our focus will be to turn decimals into fractions, which I hope you guys enjoyed before because I know I enjoy one of this topic. All right, so here's one whole. So that's one whole, kind of like one whole dollar. There's 100 cents in a dollar. Well, there's 100 parts in a whole. Okay, so this is our whole. Now, if I have my whole, this would represent a tenth because it is one part out of 10 tenths. So this is going to represent our tenths. Okay, this represents our whole dollar. Well, what would represent a tenth of a dollar? Well, 10 cents, which would be a dime, right? Okay, what if we have 100th? So what if I have just one of these hundreds? Well, that'd be represented using our unit, which would also be one of the 100 cents would be just 1 penny, right? Okay, so that was just to review what each place value looks like. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're going to be doing this week. What we're doing for today. So they want us to sketch it, and then they want it in decimal form and fraction form. So the first one is they give us, so that's 0 wholes, and we say and for a decimal, and 6, and it's in the tenths place. So 6 tenths would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 6 tenths, right? 6 dimes, which is also 60 hundredths, because 6 dimes is worth 60 hundredths. Okay, so there's 6 tenths. I can also use 1, 2, 3, 4. And this would also represent 6 tenths. So if I was to sketch it, I would put point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 tenths. So if you put your 1 under your decimal, right under the decimal, and a 0, a trailing 0 under the digits behind, you can actually see your fraction. So our fraction is 6 tenths. Now look at the next one they give us, okay? How would I say this? This is 4 tenths. 4 tenths is how you read that fraction. So 4 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths. That's the same thing as 4 dimes because they're each worth 10 cents. So here's my 4 tenths. So here's my decimal point 4 because it's in the tenths place because tenths, then hundredths. So here with my sketch, I would have point 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths. And if I was to do a decimal point, I would have my ones, tenths, hundredths. So here's my decimal between my whole numbers and my fractions. So I'd have 4 in the tenths place. So 0.4. Now you can put 0 for the whole number because there is no whole number, but that's not necessary. Okay, let's take a look at, I like this one right here. Okay, the way to say this fraction is 21 hundredths. 21 hundredths. So here here's 20, 10, 20 cents, 20, 21 cents, or I could say 21 hundredths. So my sketch would be point 10, 20, 21. So my decimal, I have 0 or ones, tenths, hundredths. So here's my decimal. So it's 21 hundredths. And here's and I can say 0. So 21 hundredths. Let's do another one. Here's, how would I say this? Well, this would be my ones, tenths, hundredths, right? So I would have 94, and it goes to the hundredths. So this is 94 hundredths. Because remember, decimals are the same thing as fractions, which are part of a whole. So if I have 94 hundredths, that's nearly a whole dollar, isn't it? So it's nearly a whole, but not quite. So here I put a 1 under the decimal with trailing zeros, and there's 2 numbers behind the decimal. So here is 94 hundredths. So my fraction is 94 hundredths. So my sketch, I have no holes, so decimal point, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94. There's 94 hundredths. Okay, here on this side of it, okay, we have our models, and they want us to put it in fraction and a decimal. Write the fraction and decimal that represent the shaded part of the model. Well, even though they didn't give you a place value chart, if it's a place value question, I require a place value chart. So here's my ones place, tenths, hundredths. So this, you see how this whole thing is shaded? This is 100 out of 100 shaded. That's the whole thing. So I have one whole, and so I could even put my decimal in there because this is representing part of a whole. So this will represent a decimal number. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, and 77 hundredths. So here's my decimal that I made in my place value chart. So y'all are going to be making a bunch of place value charts this week. So my decimal is 1 and 77 hundredths. And if I was to put that in a fraction, here's my 1 under the decimal with my trailing zeros. So that's one whole. So I need a big daddy 1 to represent my one whole. And 77 hundredths. 77 hundredths. Let's do another. Notice how this is out of 100. My whole is out of 100. What is my whole out of here? Oh, there's only 10 parts of this whole. So these would represent hundredths. This would represent tenths. So here I have my ones place, tenths, hundredths. So this is 10 out of 10, which represents the whole. So I have 1, and here's 2 out of the 10. So 2 tenths. So my decimal is 1 and 2 tenths. I put my 1 under the decimal with a trailing 0 to help with my fraction. So I have 1 whole, so Big Daddy 1 whole, and 2 tenths. All right, down below, I am going to assign you some practice.